Good evening, everyone. My name is Chimezi Ruzondo, and I'll be taking you mathematics for this session. So I really hope that we're going to have a very wonderful session as we take this mathematics, and I'll be taking you numbers and basic arithmetic operations. So the first thing, what we are actually doing today is numbers and basic arithmetic operations. So, and I said we're going to be treating certain important terminologies. So the first one is going to be integers. Integers. So what are integers? Integers simply refer to whole numbers. You refer to them as what? Whole numbers. And these whole numbers can either be positive whole numbers or negative whole numbers. So numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, maybe 7, 9, 10. These are integers, but they are whole numbers. Now, numbers like this, if any sign is not written by the side, it simply means it's a positive number. So like I said, integers, which are whole numbers, can either be positive or negative. So positive ones, we put positive values like this. So these are positive integers. And you can have negative integers like -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, and so on, etc. So these are negative integers, but they are whole numbers. So integers are whole numbers, which can either be positive or negative. And then you have what is called even numbers. These are very simple terminologies, but I think they are important. It's important that we note them. So what are even numbers? So even numbers are numbers that are divisible by 2. Numbers that can be divided by 2 are referred to as even numbers. And of course, I know that this is not difficult. Numbers like 2 itself is divisible by 2, 4 divisible by 2, 6, 8, 10, 12, and so on and so forth. All these numbers are divisible by 2. Therefore, they are called even numbers. Okay, so and of course, these even numbers can either be also positive or negative. All right, so if you have -2, -4, -6, -8, -10, -12, these are also even numbers because they are also divisible by 2. And then you also have what is called odd numbers. Odd numbers. So odd numbers are, of course, numbers that are not divisible by 2, and they fall in between the even numbers. And that includes 1, includes 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and so on and so forth. And you can also have positive and negative odd numbers. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to be talking about is prime numbers. So what are prime numbers? Prime numbers are integers. Okay, they are whole numbers that have only two factors. That is, they can only be divided by two numbers, and that is themselves and 1. Themselves and 1. So those are the two numbers that can divide a prime number. So remember, there are three important things you have to take note about prime numbers. And those three important things are: 1, the prime number is a whole number. That's number 1. Number 2, prime numbers have factors, and those factors are either 1 or themselves. So what are examples of prime numbers? So I hope you should be guessing what prime numbers are now. So they include things like 2. 1 itself is not a prime number. I want to take note of that before we start. 1 itself is not a prime number, okay, because it is divisible by 1, and then, of course, it doesn't give another chance for another number to divide 1. So 1 is off prime numbers. So you start from 2. 2 is a prime number because 1 can divide 2, and then 2 can also divide 2. So it has two factors. And then 2 itself is a whole number. So 2 is a prime number. What other prime number do you have? You have 3. 3 can also be divided by itself and 1. What other prime number do you have? You have 5. You have 7. You have 11, you have 13, you have 17, you have 19, you have 23, and so on and so forth. So you can go ahead and, try to figure out more other prime numbers you have ahead of 23, because they are very, very useful in mathematics. Okay. And then, what is a rational number? That's another terminology we're going to be treating. Rational numbers. Rational numbers. So rational numbers are numbers that can be represented as a over b. They can be represented as A over B. All right. So numbers that can be represented in this form to give you a definite value is referred to as rational numbers. Okay. So that's what rational numbers are, represented in this form A over B. To give you a definite value, you refer to it as rational numbers. So when you have something like 3 over 5, is a rational number. This is actually going to give you 0.6. So it's a rational number. Okay. So that's an example of rational number. So I wouldn't talk about rational numbers without talking about irrational numbers. Okay. So irrational numbers. Irrational numbers. So irrational numbers are numbers that cannot be represented in the form of A over what? B. So and not only that they cannot be represented in the form of A over B, even when you try to represent in the form of A over B, they do not give you a definite value. They give you a value that keeps on going forever, like they don't get to stop. So that is irrational numbers. So numbers like square root of 2, for instance, is an irrational number. Square root of 3. In fact, the square root of prime numbers are all irrational numbers. Okay? The square root of prime numbers are all irrational numbers. They cannot be represented in the form of A over B. And when you represent them at all, you want to get a particular value, it keeps going, non-stop. That gives you a definite value. Then the next thing we're going to be talking about is prime factors. But before we talk about prime factors, let's talk about what factors are. What are factors? I mentioned before that prime numbers are numbers that have two factors, which is themselves and one. So the question is, what are factors? Factors are simply numbers that can divide another number exactly without any remainder. So if I ask you now, what are the factors of 6? You start thinking, what are the numbers that can divide 6 exactly without any remainder? And that includes 1. 1 can divide 6 exactly without remainder. 2 can divide 6 exactly without remainder to give you 3. 3 also can divide 6 exactly without remainder to give you 2. And then once you get to half of the number, the next factor you're likely going to have is the number itself. So you now have 6. 6 can also divide 6 exactly without remainder. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 6. These are the factors of 6 because these 4 numbers that you're looking at here can divide 6 exactly without any remainder. And now leads us into what are prime factors. What are prime factors? So prime factors are factors that are prime. Okay, so factors that are prime. So if I say what are the prime factors of 6 right now, you now start looking at these factors of 6. Which of them are prime numbers? So prime factors are factors that are prime. So if you look at the factors of 6 here now, if I ask you what are the prime factors of 6, you now look for the factors of 6 that are prime numbers, and that includes 2 and 3. So the prime factors of 6 are 2 and 3. So prime factors simply means factors of a number that are prime.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel.